Hello, welcome. In this lecture, it is Sam here, not Ben, and I am going to be showing you how to use the new Include What You Use system in Unreal 4.17 and greater. So this is going to be teaching you how you could have worked out in the last video for yourself that you needed to include game framework / actor. You'll be able to do this now for anything that Ben includes and doesn't have an include, but you need an include. You'll be able to identify the error and identify the header that you need to include and do that for yourself. So that's the important takeaway from this lecture. And furthermore, what we're going to be doing is showing you how to convert old projects you might have in older versions before 4.17 into Unreal 4.17 and get rid of all the errors that would happen during the conversion process. So let's dive in and see how that's done. So I want to show you first of all how we can go about converting old projects before 4.17 into the new 4.17 include what you use format. Now, what is that include what you use format? Let's just take a quick look over at the reference here. It's called the IWYU reference. I'm going to call it the include what you use because it's much easier to say. And this is included in your resources for the lecture. It is a very in detail and very technical description of why they've made this change. But let me just tell you in short words why they've made this change. It is in order to make compile times quicker. But the downside is that you're going to have to include more things, put more includes at the top of your files, basically for what you use, hence the name. So that means that it's no longer including big files like Engine, which slow down compile time, but mean that you've got all the dependencies you need. Now you've got to be a bit more specific about which dependencies your files will need. So that's all very abstract. Let's see how we can convert first an old project to include what you use, and then we'll see how we can, what changes we'll need to be making as we go forward, because Ben won't have been using this because he was recording in an older version of Unreal. So I'm going to show you how you can find out what extra things you need to include for yourself. It's a very easy process and I will walk you through all of it. So first off, I have a folder downloaded from Ben's project, and this is the project exactly in the state it is when he was showing it to you in the last lecture. So it is in fact in the old project, it's in 4.15 or something like that. So if I first off I want to generate a Visual Studio project file, I want to regenerate the Visual Studio project file, so I'm going to delete the solution file, right click U project. You can do the same thing on Mac and go to generate Visual Studio project file. On Mac that would be under services, and it's going to ask me which Unreal version do you want. Yes, I want 4.17, so let's go ahead and click OK and let it generate the project file using the 4.17 code to do that. And when that has finished generating, we're going to open up the solution file and we are going to have a go and see if in 4.17 an old project will build at all. So I'm going to go ahead and start a build. I use the shortcut Control-Shift-B to do that. Now, what we'd expect is that maybe, with this new include what you use standard, things aren't going to work because we haven't been including what we use. We've been using basically the old format. We've been including the big header files, although we might have not known it explicitly. That's what we were doing. We were basically bringing in all the dependencies that we could possibly need just in case. Now, just to reiterate, you will not need to do this if you created your project in 4.17. This is only if your project was created in an earlier version of Unreal. So in the newer versions of Unreal, you will be getting the problems straight away. You will be seeing the errors I'm talking about. But if you're upgrading a project, it'll be slightly different, because here, as you can see, I have got no errors. It's built just fine, which means that it's actually the setup of the project which is different when you created it in 4.17. Let me show you what those differences are by including, or changing it into the format it would have been if I'd created it in 4.17. So first off, we go to our project, go to the sources in Visual Studio, and open up the Building Escape folder and open up a file called buildingescape.build.cs. Now this is a C# file, not a C++ file, and it's used as part of the build system in Unreal in order to build your projects. And it's a little bit different syntax, but very, very similar to C++. Now the first step is, according to the include what you use reference that we've got here, the first step to including or enabling include what you use is to set a PCH usage variable over here in our build. Now we do this inside this method called building escape, which takes a target as an argument. We're going to set that to PCH usage mode, use explicit or shared PCH. Now that's a bit of a mouthful, but basically what that means is please enable include what you use for me. That's basically all it's saying. So technical jargon for it, but if you type that line in, that will do the trick. And one more thing, because this won't work just yet, because another optimization that Unreal has that bundles all the C++ files together and so makes it not obvious if you've got an include error, is the following. We need to go up a level into our sources again and to building escape editor.target.cs. And now here we've got another CS file, another C# file, and here we've got a method at the top called building escape editor target, and at the bottom of that, just under where it says type equals target type editor, we need to include some more things. Now the link to these references are again in your resources. This is just a forum post here where somebody is saying, oh no, I can't seem to enable Unity build. If you read through the reference carefully, it talks about enabling Unity build but doesn't tell you how to do it. And here this chap HUWP has given some instructions on how to do it, and we are going to be using these instructions. So I'm going to copy them and then talk through what they are. The first is a variable called b, use Unity build, and we're setting that to false. And the second is b, use PCH files, and we're setting that to false. Basically, this disables a couple of optimizations that would be hiding the header include errors from you. So once we've done that, we can go ahead and try and build again and see what errors we actually get. So this time we've definitely got some errors, which is a good thing actually, because it allows me to teach you how we can get rid of these errors. If we go to the output log, let's have a look at what errors it's actually moaning about. Lots of warnings here, but you can ignore anything that says warning and we can search for anything that says error instead. So that one's not really an error. It says it's an error, but it's not. It's the things that say error : that we're really looking for here, although it doesn't want to search for those. So anything with error : is what we're looking for. Okay, so we're looking for, it's saying expected build escape mode, a game mode, to be first header, and expected position report.h to be first header. Now these are fairly self-explanatory errors. Basically what this is saying is that when you're using include what you use, one of the things that it stipulates is that the header of the C++ file is the first thing in the include list, and as we can see here, it's the second thing, and that it does not like. So let's go ahead and reorder those. You probably figured that out for yourself, but in case you hadn't figured it out, that's what's going on, and that is why it's the include what you use system doing some clever magic just to check your headers for you, and I've just gone and reordered them. Okay, so let's build again and see if there are any more errors that aren't about the order of headers. Again, we've got lots of warnings. These warnings are about using an old project, basically, and a few deprecation warnings. We don't need to worry about that because if you created it in 4.17, then you should be okay. These are things that were auto-generated in the project anyway, so you won't have them if you created them in 4.17. Okay, now it's compiling just fine. That's a little bit odd because we haven't actually had to include anything unusual. So what's going on here? Well, what is going on is that we need to remove some of the monolithic headers being included. So you'll notice here in the position report.cpp, we are including building escape.h. And if we go to building escape.h, you'll notice, aha, the culprit, we are including engine.h. Now, that is one of the monolithic headers that they were telling us about as naughty naughty, slap on the wrist. Let's remove that monolithic header and go ahead and build now and see whether we're now going to get those errors about not having included certain files. There we go, we see pretty much instantly it started to fail because of include errors. That's exactly what I wanted to see. So let's have a look through some of these. Okay, so this is still related to the fact that we have removed our engine. What we're seeing here is the default game module not being included, and the way we fix this is actually very easy. If you look again at the include what you use reference, and I do recommend you have a read, even if you don't understand everything, just to have it wash over you and see what you do remember, and then maybe in the future you'll be like, I remember reading something about that in the include what you use reference. Okay, so what it's talking about here is that at the bottom we have some general tips about include what you use, and it says you need to include core minimal at the top of each header file. Okay, so that might be a clue. Let's try including core minimal. So that is a minimal header instead of that big monolithic engine header. And if we do that in this project, then hopefully we will get errors about actually our includes and not other includes. Okay, not quite there yet. There is just one more change here, which is that we need to go into our CPP file, and underneath our building escape include, we need to include another include, which is a little bit arbitrary, and you might be scratching your head and going, what's going on here? Well, this is a header which defines our default game module implementation. Now, if you've created your project in 4.17, that would be included by default, so you really don't have to worry about that. It's just #include modules /module manager.h. If you ever do need to convert something, then that is what you would need to do. So let's go ahead and build this now and see if it is going to complain about our own includes. At last we've got there. It is giving us some interesting errors. Let's go to output, ignoring the warnings, and just Control F for the errors. And you will see some very interesting errors, which are that left of getName must point to class struct union generic type. So that, if you ever see this error, is a sign that something is missing, that you are not including something. And what you'll typically see before it is something like C declaration of A actor, or another error saying use of undefined type A actor. So do look around and watch out for errors that say use of undefined type A actor. So we've finally got to the stage of being able to see how we would find our own headers. So if you had gone ahead and followed Ben's instructions without trying to follow my edit in the last video, then you will have noticed that you get the squiggly underneath get owner, and you would get an error saying use of undefined type A actor. Well, there's the hint right there for you. So what we've got coming back from get owner is a class or a pointer of type A actor. The problem is we haven't included any information about A actor. So when we do our arrow operator and dereference and get the value stored at that A actor pointer, our code basically doesn't know how to deal with it. It doesn't know what methods it has. It doesn't know what it can call on it. So when we try to do getName, it doesn't know whether getName is a valid thing for it to be calling on that actor pointer. Now, let me just make one thing absolutely clear. There may be cases where you have no errors in the build, but you have red squiggly lines. Now, in this case, you don't actually have to include anything, because what's going on is that Visual Studio's IntelliSense is getting a little bit confused and isn't being able to find the type, even though Unreal is able to find it and you're able to build and everything is okay. So in these cases, you don't actually have to include anything, but if you want the IntelliSense error to go away because it's annoying you, then you might have to go ahead and include things via the process we're about to see. So what we need to do is include the appropriate header. Now, how do you do that, I hear you ask? Well, it's very straightforward. You take whatever type it's saying is undefined, and that's the thing that we want to find the header for, okay? Then you go and search for the documentation for that. So I'm just going to literally type A actor into Google. These names of classes are typically very easy to find. If you search for A actor, it will try to correct you for actor. So maybe you search for A actor Unreal. That should help narrow it down quite a lot. Okay, so we've got A actor Unreal, and one of the first results, at least for me, is this actor reference right here. So we've got A actor Unreal Engine API reference. I'm going to go ahead and open that API reference up. And we don't need very much information from this page at all. It might be a little overwhelming for you at this stage. But all we need to do is go right to the bottom of this file and look for the place where the section called references and the section called header. That's basically what we need to include. Now what you can do is you can go ahead and take that whole thing and go over and put it into Visual Studio. Seems a bit long, but we'll fix that in just a second. I'm going to go and include that whole header. Now remember, we've done that because we got an error saying that we had an undefined type A actor. So I've gone and included the whole header, and now if I go and build, let's see if it works. Yep, sure enough, that fixes my build. So whenever you see undefined type of blah, then that's what you need to do. Go and look for it on the web, find that header at the bottom of the documentation page and include it. As simple as that, 1, 2, 3. And what we can do here is we can actually simplify a little bit. Sometimes you can take away some of the bits at the beginning and keep trying to compile and see if they still work. And generally, if you find something that is part of the path that says classes or public, then you can include get rid of everything up to that point. So what do I mean by that? I probably went through that a little bit quickly. What I can see here is as part of this path, I've got a classes folder. Well, basically everything after classes is what we need, and everything before classes we don't need. Similarly, you might find some others that have a public folder, and a similar thing happens there. Generally, it's just 2 levels, just game, framework, actor, or something else, and then something else. But you can always, to be sure and to be safe, include the whole thing if you want to. So what I'm just showing you here is that we can just abbreviate this a little bit, and you will see that Game Framework Actor, like I included in the last video, is enough to actually have included the right file. There you go, it's still built. So a little bit of an in-depth dive, but if you take anything away from this video, then just take away how to find the headers, which is the most important thing. If you get undeclared type, then take that type, say A actor, search for it like with Unreal at the end and find it in the documentation, and then include the header that's at the bottom of that documentation file. Simple as that. And I will see you, or rather Ben will see you in the next video.